Headlines of VTV News. Vietnamese party chief holds phone talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Opportunity to export rice to the Middle East. And later on in our world news, Russia searches for mastermind of terrorist attack.
Broadcasting from Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam. VTV News starts right now.
Hello there and welcome to VTV News, broadcast live to you from Hanoi. You're with me, Lina Pham, and here's the top news of the hour. Party General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng held a high-level conference call with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday at the party headquarters in Hanoi. At the talk, he warmly congratulated President Putin on being re-elected as President of Russia for the 2024 to 2030 term with a record high number of votes. The Party General Secretary also conveyed deep condolences to President Vladimir Putin, the Russian people, and the families of victims of the terrorist attack in Moscow on the evening of March the 22nd, 2024. President Vladimir Putin expressed his gratitude for the congratulatory message from Party General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng and the timely condolences and sharing of the party, state, and people of Vietnam regarding the losses suffered by the Russian people in the terrorist attack. The Party General Secretary took the occasion to extend an invitation to President Vladimir Putin to visit Vietnam in the near future, which the latter accepted with pleasure. On Tuesday morning, Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính held a dialogue with young people to commemorate the 93rd anniversary of the Ho Chi Minh Communist Youth Union's founding. He conveyed General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng greetings and best wishes to all Vietnamese Youth Union members on this special occasion. During the meeting, the Prime Minister and other ministry and branch leaders answered numerous questions about the party and state's resources, policies, and mechanisms for supporting and promoting youth roles in digital transformation. The Prime Minister encouraged Vietnamese youth to actively promote the development of digital infrastructure and train human resources to foster innovation, entrepreneurship, and digital culture. He also presented the Ho Chi Minh Communist Youth Union with a set of 8 valuable books authored by General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng. On Tuesday morning, the 5th session of the 15th National Assembly Standing Committee was convened under the chairmanship of National Assembly Chairman Vương Đình Huệ to discuss lawmaking. In his welcome address, the National Assembly Chairman noted that since the beginning of the term, National Assembly standing members have contributed over 300 comments and 25 law projects and draft resolutions. He commended the drafting agencies for their close follow-up and coordination in the law development process. He also recommended that for the 8 law projects due for discussion and submission at the 7th session, deputies should ascertain whether the draft law projects align with the party's policies, the constitution, and the existing legal system. In keeping with the spirit, the Tuesday morning session centered on the draft law on the capital city with a law project with many unique mechanisms. On March the 26th, specialized National Assembly deputies discussed 4 laws, including the law with many unique and outstanding regulations, such as the Capital Law Project amended.
At the discussion session, many deputies were interested in the issue of how to decentralize power more strongly to Hanoi, especially in terms of apparatus and staffing to ensure the city can undertake its specific tasks.
This law has up to 82 very heavy tasks assigned to the People's Council. The People's Council not only carries out the tasks assigned in the capital law but also many other tasks. The number of People's Council delegates I propose can be increased to 150 delegates
I propose that in the law, we stipulate that Hanoi is allowed to use the total salary fund according to the national average payroll level, and if with such a total salary fund, the actual number of payroll funds in Hanoi is lower than the general average, then the city can use the difference in the total salary fund to become additional income. The total salary fund will pay more to employees and we will create real reform.
Many deputies were also interested in the issue, focusing on the linkage relationship between Hanoi capital and surrounding localities, ensuring mutual support for effective and comprehensive development.
The draft law does not yet determine which localities and boundaries the capital region includes. So it is proposed to add regulations to specifically identify localities in the capital region in the draft law to serve as a practical basis for regulating regional integration policies.
Regarding attracting strategic investors, we must also consider, because if the capital gives priority to attracting strategic investors too strongly, it will affect the attractiveness and competitiveness of surrounding areas, and it will concentrate the labor flow to the capital, creating urban pressure. So there needs to be sharing and regional cooperation with the capital. Shared mechanisms must be established to support the surrounding areas.
The capital law was amended, if passed, will negate previous laws that are not appropriate. However, the instructions need to be more specific and detailed so as to ensure the implementation of the law.
Politburo member, permanent member of the party's Central Committee's Secretariat and head of the party's Central Committee's Organization Commission, Trương Thị Mai, hosted a reception in Hanoi on Tuesday for Kim Song-nam, the director of the International Development of the Central Committees of the Workers' Party of Korea, or WPK, who was visiting. During the event, she expressed appreciation for the visit, highlighting the forthcoming celebration of the 75th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the two countries. She requested Kim Song-nam to convey warm regards and best wishes from Party General Secretary Nguyễn Phú Trọng to Chairman of State Affairs of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK, Kim Jong-un. For his part, Kim Song-nam emphasized that his visit aimed to bolster the friendship and cooperation between Vietnam and DPRK, as well as to discuss strategies for enhancing party development efforts on both sides. Minister of Foreign Affairs Bùi Thanh Sơn held a working session with U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan in Washington, D.C. on March the 25th as part of his U.S. trip to co-chair the first annual dialogue between the foreign ministers of Vietnam and the U.S. Sullivan reaffirmed that the U.S. attaches great importance to relations with Vietnam and supports a strong, independent, self-resilient, and a prosperous Vietnam with increasingly important role in the region and the world. For his part, Vietnamese Foreign Minister said he is pleased with the specific and positive results recorded during the implementation of the Vietnam-U.S. Comprehensive Strategic Partnership so far, especially the regular high-level delegation exchanges. The two sides also discussed a number of regional and global issues of shared concern. Vietnamese Minister of Home Affairs Phạm Thị Thanh Trà and her Lao counterpart Thong Chanh Manise vowed to continue cooperation for the 2024 to 2026 period during their talks in Vientiane on March the 25th. Both ministers further agreed to enhance knowledge sharing and offer direct support in personnel training in public administration, archives management, religious affairs and emulation and commendation, and state organization science. On March the 26th, Lao Prime Minister Sonexay Siphandone on March the 26th held Vietnam-Laos cooperation in home affairs as he received Vietnamese Minister of Home Affairs Ministry. For her part, she informed the Lao leader about the cooperation results between the two ministries as well as the results of her talks with her Lao counterpart. The Vietnamese side will do its best to implement Vietnam-Laos cooperation programs to join in maintaining and nurturing the special solidarity between the two countries. Overseas Vietnamese citizens will enjoy the same housing and land rights as their counterparts residing in Vietnam, according to significant updates shared during the conference on the dissemination of information concerning Vietnamese citizens living abroad in the land law, housing law, and real estate business law. The State Committee for Overseas Vietnamese organized this event in Hanoi on the afternoon of March the 26th. The conference employed a hybrid format combining both in-person and online sessions, with over 500 delegates participating and more than 50 locations, both domestic and international, joining remotely.
During the conference, officials from the National Assembly Economic Committee, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, and the Ministry of Construction presented updates in the land law, housing law, and related real estate business law directly to the Vietnamese community abroad. Previous laws differentiated land and housing rights between Vietnamese citizens in the country and those residing abroad. However, the new laws ensure that Vietnamese citizens abroad have equal rights to housing and land as those in Vietnam. The real estate business law now categorizes business activities into two groups. Firstly, Vietnamese citizens abroad with Vietnamese nationality enjoy the same rights as those in Vietnam for property transactions. The second group, comprised of individuals of Vietnamese origin living abroad, also includes explicit provisions regarding their rights concerning business operations, purchasing and selling properties, as well as renting, leasing, and transferring them. These changes aim to boost investment and attract remittances from millions of Vietnamese citizens abroad, contributing to the country's economic development.
Coming up next, opportunity to export rice to the Middle East. And risk of contamination from unsorted food waste. You're watching VTV News. The Luc-Long Thanh Expressway project was developed with the goal of inter-regional connection, creating an east-west corridor for the southern region. The project uses loans from the Asian Bank, Japan International Cooperation Agency, and domestic capital. However, due to changes in policy mechanisms, the project was not allocated capital and only restarted last year. There is now an urgent need to complete construction as the investor of the project committed to finish the entire route in the third quarter of next year.
Immediately after restarting the project, 11 bidding packages of the Luc-Long Thanh Expressway resumed construction simultaneously. Many bidding packages aim to be completed before April 30th this year.
The contractor arranged overtime resources to ensure maximum machinery and speed during this dry season to complete the project.
The remaining work with the most volume at the Expressway project is the bridge construction packages in the western region under Japan International Cooperation Agency's funding.
This package already demobilized, restarted last year, August. All equipment is ready, and we are starting to the home traveler.
Segment was completed. So from now on, remaining 16 segments, one by one, we are constructed.
Up to this point, bidding packages in eastern region have been on schedule.
With the J3 bridge package, we will speed up the bidding process to select a contractor for construction.
The Luc-Long Thanh Expressway project has a length of nearly 58 kilometers, passing through localities Long An, Ho Chi Minh City, and Dong Nai. Once completed, it will help connect inter-regional connections, creating an east-west corridor for the southern region with road, sea, and air transportation systems.
Vietnamese rice is the top product in the international market, and at the same time, key rice supplies in the world are limited. Strategies are needed to proactively enhance value and expand opportunities for Vietnamese rice. In the Middle East, Vietnamese rice is favored by a lot of current importers.
Al Khami is a business in the United Arab Emirates specializing in importing rice from Vietnam. Vietnamese rice is imported to serve Asian restaurants, including high-end restaurants, after a thorough inspection process.
Vietnam rice, first we are getting the samples, we are cooking, we are giving to the chefs, so we can get very good quality rice for you.
Compared to rice from some other countries, Vietnamese rice is whiter and brighter. Looks nicer.
However, if look at supermarket shelves, Vietnamese rice still only accounts for a small portion. This stems from the taste for rice of most people in the Middle East and many countries on the Mediterranean coast. Rice grains used to cook rice here usually have to be loose and not sticky, because rice is often served with sauces. Quality Vietnamese rice varieties such as ST25 are therefore not easy to promote here.
Only India did the export 45 varieties of white rice, and if you want, Vietnam want to do the survey and better, you will get the idea is the huge demand in the world. Vietnam should learn what is the other white rice.
Vietnamese rice exported to the Middle East is also currently packaged in the same packaging as rice from Thailand and some other countries. It makes consumers who eat Vietnamese rice often have little idea about the image of Vietnamese rice.
Main advantage is the price. We are getting a very good price from Vietnam.
Currently about 50% of food needs in the Middle East must be imported. Rice imports are forecast to grow strongly as this is one of the two regions with the fastest population growth in the world.
The first international legally binding agreement to combat plastic pollution is anticipated to be approved later this year. The fourth round of negotiations will be held in Ottawa, Canada next April. A consultation workshop took place on Tuesday morning in Ho Chi Minh City to gather opinions from ministries, departments, and businesses. Vietnam acknowledges the severity of plastic pollution but also recognizes the importance of plastic in modern life. The country hopes for a fair and shared responsibility solution which aligns with the capabilities of all parties, including Vietnam. The agreement should not impose trade barriers that could negatively impact developing countries. Efforts to control plastic pollution should consider financing, technology transfer, and capacity building for these countries. The goal is to end plastic pollution by 2040. Household waste has been a burden on the urban environment for a long time. However, up to now, the classification of household waste at source has not been promoted and only occurs mainly with plastic waste. If not treated, food waste will affect the environment just as much as plastic waste. Therefore, this is an issue that needs more attention from the authorities and people.
Many people put seafood and other things right to this garbage bin. Leachates then drop down to the street. When I walk through, it smells very unpleasant.
People do not classify trash at all.
Mixing different types of trash together is not because people do not have a sense of classification. Even if they want to classify, most of them do not know how and where to throw them away.
There is only one garbage gathering place here to collect all the trash from the residential area. Now, there are no regulations to classify food and other items separately.
In Ba Dinh district, about 300 tons of household waste are collected a day. They contain hazardous waste, household waste, and food waste.
According to a report by the World Bank, for every 10 tons of waste in Vietnam, 5 to 8 tons are biodegradable organic waste, of which 60 to 70% is food waste.
Even though it's easier to decompose than nylon, it still has a decomposition process. However, this process causes pollution, because food waste is very moist. When it is stored for a long time, It will create leachate, negatively affecting groundwater and land.
According to studies, methane gas from food waste creates 3.3 billion tons of greenhouse gases per year, accounts for about 7% of total global emissions. This is also a major cause of soil and water pollution and a source of dangerous diseases.
The Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment also has a technical guide for types of waste, including food waste. However, we see that most localities have not taken any strong action that force people to classify food waste and issue suitable solutions to collect and dispose of this type of waste.
While there are no UN regulations for classifying and treating food waste, many people have their own ways.
I will collect the leftover vermicelli noodles in a bucket and bring them home to feed the pigs.
I used food waste to create organic fertilizer for my garden. My plants grow very well.
Classifying and treating food waste in Vietnam needs to start with each household and grow outward from there, much like in developed countries.
A recent blockbuster from Vietnamese director Trấn Thành has made a grand entrance onto the international stage, premiering at nearly 200 theaters in Europe and North America. The success of My illustrates to the immense potential of Vietnamese films to captivate international audiences.
The U.S. premiere of My last week drew a large audience of both Vietnamese and international viewers. Both the film director and Vietnamese artist expressed immense joy at the warm reception each character received.
But I would tell you guys, whatever culture, go out and watch this movie. It's great. Whether you're, American, European, Asian, it really speaks out to being a strong human being, a strong woman.
These days, anybody can film a movie. But in my experience, it comes down to one little thing: a great story. I was touched by it. It's an extraordinary story, and you can tell that the director really put his heart into it.
In recent years, many Vietnamese film producers have targeted international audiences. Numerous Vietnamese films have captured the hearts of the Vietnamese diaspora in the United States. These films serve as a bridge, connecting Vietnamese communities abroad with their homeland.
Overseas Vietnamese really want to see Vietnamese movies. I hope the Vietnamese film industry will release more captivating, high-quality movies in both the domestic and international markets. I also hope Vietnamese films will be screened.
However, increasing the presence of Vietnamese movies in foreign markets, including the U.S., has never been easy. According to Thien A Pham, director of a film production and distribution company, Vietnamese films should target audiences in the U.S. instead of focusing solely on Vietnamese communities.
Vietnamese producers should promote their films internationally and build trust with foreign audiences. Good movies can touch the hearts of audiences and change their preferences.
The success of My has invigorated the domestic film industry and inspired many Vietnamese producers to market their films internationally.
Coming up next in our world news, Russia searches for mastermind of terrorist attack. Baltimore bridge collapse sends vehicles tumbling into water. During a meeting in Moscow on Monday, Russian President Vladimir Putin confirmed that radical Islamists were behind the attack at a Krosno City Hall concert venue. President Putin said that although he wants to punish the killers, the Russian authorities will objectively investigate the terrorist incident. Russian authorities reported that 7 other suspects have been detained and 3 of them were remanded by the court Monday on charges of being involved in the attack. According to the Russian Investigation Committee, by the end of Monday, the number of people killed by the terrorist attack has increased to 139. Of these, 95 people have been identified. More than 180 people were injured of varying severity. after the horrific terrorist attack at a Crocus Hall on the night of March 22nd. Security measures in Moscow are being tightened, especially in commercial centers. A ship struck Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge early Tuesday, causing a partial collapse and sending vehicles and people into the waters. Officials in Maryland said the container ship Dali, a Singapore-flagged vessel, struck the bridge at about 1:30 a.m., according to Marine Traffic, a ship tracking company. The about 984-foot ship had departed from port in Baltimore at about 1 a.m. and was bound for Sri Lanka, the tracker said. So far, 2 people were rescued, and it was not clear how many more might be in the waters of the busy harbor near the key port. The bridge, which is part of Interstate 695, crosses the Patapsco River in Baltimore's harbor. The Boao Forum for Asia, under themes Asia and the World, Common Challenges, Shared Responsibility, kicked off in Hainan on Tuesday. Speaking at the conference on the annual report on Asian Economic Outlook 2024, Secretary General of the Forum, Li Baodong, said that Asia will continue to maintain strong growth momentum in 2024, with very good growth prospects from China, India, Indonesia, and Saudi Arabia. The report assesses that Asia is the main pillar of world economic growth in the post-pandemic era. The growth rate of emerging markets and developing economies in Asia will reach 5.2%. Asia accounts for more than 35% of global exports and 43% of global trade. The Boao Forum for Asia takes place from March the 26th to the 29th. Climate change is impacting the traditional cherry blossom season all over the world. There are some countries where cherry blossoms very early, while still other places are delayed.
March is the start of cherry blossom season in Japan, but in Tokyo, from the end of February, people and tourists can admire the cherry blossoms in bloom. This year's cherry blossoms in Tokyo bloom about 10 days earlier than forecast. This year is the 3rd year Tokyo bloomed the earliest in the country. The previous 2 times were in 2020 and 2023.
It's very unusual for the weather to be this hot at this time. Just walking down the street makes me sweat.
According to the Japan Meteorological Agency, the cause of this situation is because Tokyo is suffering from a perfect storm, which is the dual impact of warmer temperatures and the urban heat island effect. This is a phenomenon in which urban areas are warmer than rural areas because heat is absorbed and reflected by buildings and infrastructures. The warm weather in March this year has also caused cherry blossoms in Washington to bloom in recent days, a week earlier than the initial predicted. This year's peak bloom took place before the official opening of the National Cherry Blossom Festival. According to forecasts, visitors should be enjoying the blooms in 1 to 2 weeks if weather conditions were normal.
Not only was it the 2nd earliest peak bloom on record, it was also the fastest run through the bloom cycle.
Meanwhile, in South Korea, due to unusually cold weather in March, the cherry blossom season here is going to be later than expected.
And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. And that's it for this edition of VTV News. Thank you very much for watching. To rewatch our program, you can download VTVgo from App Store or Google Play, or tune in our YouTube channel at youtube.com/VTV4Go. Goodbye.